someone who's already a 3-time first-team All-NBA performer is Luka Doncic. And as his team tries to climb back in it tonight, I came across this today from Bleacher Report, Chris Arnold's favorite publication. And it is 5 early signs that Luka Doncic is going to win the NBA's MVP. And I don't know how I felt about it, to be quite honest with you, because we've talked about some of this, but diving a little bit deeper into it, and you start to see some of the reasons why Doncic already is an MVP frontrunner. I don't know how sustainable this is going to be for the rest of the year. Now, here's reason number 1 that comes from Bleacher Report is opponents are quote-unquote asking for it. Now, Dallas is getting fewer catch-and-shoot threes than it did a season ago, and their open or wide-open looks are both down from last year's levels. But at the same time, Doncic leads the league in scoring coming into the night, averaging nearly 37 points per game. We talked about his usage rate being insanely high already this year.
Yeah.
In fact, Doncic is on pace to post the second highest usage rate of all time, behind only Russell Westbrook's 2016-2017 MVP season, where he just went bonkers and averaged triple doubles all year long. But that's where we are with Doncic. And I don't know if this is going to be sustainable or if this is even a formula that you want the Mavericks to engage in, with all of the load being placed on his 23-year-old broad shoulders there.
Yeah, I'm very intrigued by the framing of teams are asking for it, because that's kind of what they are. They're daring you to have Luka Doncic beat them 1-on-5. And so as much as we talk about the time of possession, also the ways in which he is having to create for other players is so extremely intensive, right? It takes energy. They're having him have to drive and bang in the post and, snake, pick and rolls and do all of these things that expend energy just to get the looks that he gets. And of course, he can go and he can, bully a guy down on the block and get a basket. All right, we're gonna try that again. You can get a bucket at the basket. There we go. It came through. Or he can drive and kick and do those things. But all of the things that he can do in those ways, they're requiring him to expend energy. And teams are like, if you want to expend that energy,
we'll let you go get that 40. Go ahead.
In the second, go ahead and do that. By the time we come to the fourth quarter, you will be gassed and we will win out. I think that's the gamble that a lot of teams are making against Luka Doncic this year.
And if you're going to stay home on shooters like Reggie Bullock and Dorian Finney-Smith and force the rest of these dudes to beat you, more times than not, this team may struggle to find a way to win games if you're going to allow Doncic to just go off for 35, 40 a night and let him go get his and make sure everybody else doesn't get theirs. I think this is where early on we see how much they miss a guy like Jalen Brunson, because when he got into the starting lineup, there were points in games where you could see Jalen Brunson take over in ball games and be able to help shoulder some of that scoring load and playmaking. You don't necessarily have that anymore, and you're looking to guys like Spencer Dinwiddie to be able to be the guy that plays that Jalen Brunson type of role, to be a facilitator at times, but also go get his own bucket when he needs to help shoulder some of that scoring load with Luka Doncic as they go forward in this season. This is interesting from the 850. Isn't that what people did to MJ? The Jordan rules.
Yeah.
The Pistons said, all right, you can go get yours, but you're going to pay for it every time you come into the paint. And Michael had to pay for it every time he made a move to the basket. Anytime he tried to make a move to get something to his teammate, he was paying for it with the physicality of the Detroit Pistons and what they wanted to do to take away everything from him.
And teams can't do that in exactly the same way. The league is
not in today's NBA.
Legislated some of that physicality out, but at the very least, if not the actual physical, banging that would happen. Sorry for the diction that I used there, but just the energy that's expended as opposed to just jumpers or just straight line drives. He is actually having to work every time down, and that takes something out of you.
Number 2 on this list is close range looks galore. Did you realize that 71% of the time Luka Doncic converts his attempts at the rim? And so it goes like this. To allow someone who converts 71% of his attempts at the rim to take over a third of his shots from that range is to beg for disaster. So he takes a third of his shots at the rim and he converts 71% of the time. Basically, it's an automatic bucket anytime Luka Doncic gets to the paint.
Yeah, that's a good pairing of stats there. Right? Really efficient when I get there, really getting there a lot. I think those two things are great. And no, that's absolutely something that you want to continue in some ways. You would just like those percentages to happen at a slightly lower volume, not necessarily because it won't allow him to gain more, but it gets other people involved.
But that just shows you how good he is at just getting into the paint,
Absolutely.
probing defenses, and making decisions with the basketball to either set himself up for easy buckets or set up Dwight Powell, JaVale McGee, whomever, take your pick, Christian Wood, to get easy baskets at the rim. And he's devastatingly efficient at it. And he will continue to do so because as slow and as plodding as he is, he gets to the rim anytime he wants to throughout the course of a ball game.
It's another credit to him, in fact, that at whatever pace he wants to, he will get to that place. It's not just, oh, well, he'll beat you to the spot. No, he could take his time and meet you there, and he will still get what he wants. It is just a credit to how good of a player Luka Doncic is.
Number 3 on this list is the one that I love the most because this is where I say his game really goes to another level if he becomes this. And the quote is, everyone loves free stuff. We're talking about a man who can get to the free throw line. So you look at the first of Joel Embiid's back-to-back second-place MVP finishes in 2020 and 21. He had 12.4 free throw attempts per 36 minutes. Last year, he had 12.6 free throws per 36 minutes. Luka Doncic this season is at 11.3 foul shots per 36 minutes. If Luka Doncic becomes between an 80 and an 85% free throw shooter for the remainder of his career, for me, Reg, there's nothing the league, they really can't do anything with him now, but if he becomes an 80 to 85% free throw shooter, it's done for the rest of the NBA, because now what do you do in terms of picking your poison? Because if you let him convert 71% of the time at the rim and then you foul him, he's going to punish you at the rim. But if you decide to allow him to drive and you foul him, he starts to punish you at the free throw line. And you don't want him taking 12 and 13 free throw attempts if he's going to be a guy that shoots 80% from the line on a consistent basis.
You laid it out there perfectly, right? It is quite the dilemma on an individual basis. And you've seen an uptick in that free throw percentage as well when it comes to that conversion rate. He's up to a 78% free throw shooter before we even consider this game that they're playing against the Utah Jazz. You've seen an uptick in that. And if he can cross over to that 80% barrier like you were talking about, that makes it so that you don't feel as great about putting him on the line. And maybe that ends up being a situation where you put him on the line simply because the other stuff scares you so much that you pick, it's the pick your poison. What is the better of two evils in some ways? But no, I think at that point, you're right. It just becomes you can't do anything with him and you hope that he alone can't beat you and you take everything else away.
Number 4 on this list is that, quote, it's all coming together. This article coming from Bleacher Report's Grant Hughes putting this together for us on this evening. And the fourth one being, it's all coming together. He starts off, quote, perhaps it's one of the difficulties that comes from having the ability to get a shot from anywhere on the floor at any time. But Doncic has had the ideal shot profile. Fortunately, his penchant for mid-rangers is gone. After ranking in the 92nd and 82nd percentile at his position in mid-range shot frequency the last 2 years, Doncic now sits in the 23rd percentile, meaning he's replaced long pull-ups with floaters and layups, and the impact on his efficiency has obviously been profound.
That's interesting. I don't think I had considered that or noticed that, but I will be on the lookout for that. I mean, just being cognizant of the types of shot, because you can get any type of shot when you're a guy like Luka Doncic, then making the conscious decision that to go and get the efficient ones is such a big change. I think that might be the most poignant thing that we've talked about thus far in this segment about why he could be an MVP.
Because now he's making better decisions with the basketball, not just for himself to set up teammates, but for himself in terms of shot selection. Because one of the things that we've criticized Luka on at times is his shot selection. Bad three-point shots taken at times. Taking mid-range jumpers when you can find yourself as a guy that's as dominant with the ball in his hands as he is. You can take guys and put them in positions where they have to make decisions on how they guard you. And if you're taking more efficient jumpers, you're going to put those defenses in bad spots game in and game out to where you're now manipulating the defenses and making the opportunities that you want to come based on how you dictate whatever you see on the floor, which he appears to be a master at already at the age of 23. So I thought that one was really poignant, given the fact that he's making better decisions with the shot selection relative to where he is on the floor. And that could make a huge difference, and probably why we've seen him average nearly 37 points per game because of the shot selection that he's having now.
All right, so what's the fifth and final reason that Luka is going to be MVP?
Fifth and final reason is, quote, and this is funny, just enough defense. For the first time ever, Grant writes, Dallas is better defensively when Luka Doncic is on the floor than off. Now, it's just barely. It's a slim differential of 0.5 points allowed per 100 possessions, but it's better when he appears to be on the floor. And that's been the other thing that Jason Kidd has wanted to ensure that Luka Doncic is doing, is that he's, quote unquote, participating on the defensive end, because Jason Kidd believes, it appears, that as your superstar goes defensively, the rest of the team will follow behind him.
And again, you don't have the leeway. You don't have the personnel for anybody to slack. Everybody got to put in, right?
Yes.
And then nobody has the
especially
bank account
if your
big
superstar
enough.
is doing it.
Right. Nobody else has the bank account defensively big enough to cover everybody, right? To foot the bill for everybody.
Yes.
And even in those instances, we've seen, right? Like you have multi-time defensive player of the year, Rudy Gobert, playing with a whole bunch of dudes who refuse to play defense.
Bruh.
You know how that goes? Bounced in the first round, right?
Yes.
This is not a league where you can't, or you can decide I'm not going to
can't
buy
hide
in.
dudes.
Somebody else going to pick it up. No. You need everybody to buy in. And Luka Doncic is the one player that you might say has the most stance to be able to not buy in and being the superstar, and that's why it's super important that he buys in.
Yeah, because you can't be a guy that gets hidden on defense in today's NBA. Guys are too good, too athletic, and they will. And plus, everyone's switching everything. So they're going to find you. Remember last year in the playoffs at times, they would be finding ways to pick on Luka, the Phoenix Suns series.
Absolutely.
They found the mark, and it was Luka Doncic, and said, we're going to pick on you, switch everything, and find ways to get you into these matchups and these pick and roll situations. Can you handle it and participate and play a shred of defense? Otherwise, they're going to hunt you. And that's exactly at times what Luka Doncic has had to deal with. But it appears he's getting better at that, and some of the numbers are starting to bear that out.